So with lettering, I'm going to make the single thin areas really thin, and then these downstrokes here, I'm going to make them thicker. So in order to do that, I'm going to use just 3 strands of black floss on the thin parts. And then once I get to the thick parts, I'm going to use 6 strands of floss, and I'm probably going to use 2 rows of it because I want to make it somewhat dramatic. So just to show you, I like to use split back stitch, which is the same as back stitch, only, sorry. Okay, so there's a single stitch, and then back stitch would ordinarily come up and then go down right where the other stitch left off, whereas split back stitch will go down into the stitch. So maybe I'll show you what that looks like. So right now this is just back stitch, and I like to do them really small because that way they go around corners well. If you do them long, that's fine in a stretch like this, but when you get to a corner, it's going to wind up giving you an angle, and that looks funny. So it's really important to follow the line of your pen, obviously. Okay, so I think you understand backstitch. So what I'll do here is I'll show you split back stitch. Instead of going to where to meet this other stitch, I'm going to actually split it and go into it. And it takes away the look of a series of bricks, I'll call them, and it gives you a slightly smoother line. It might be a slightly more textured line, but there's no stoppage in it. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So, if you can see, this has little step, step, step. You can sort of see the beginning and end of each stitch, whereas here you can't because one stitch splits and enters into the stitch behind it. So it's a slightly higher stitch. If you look, there's a little more texture there, but it's also a little bit smoother. If you want to make it more delicate, you can use fewer strands.